I just recently did a presentation at my BNI group, which is a networking group. And I put up on the screen all the jobs I've had in my life and all the titles.
Amazing.
I've been working since I was 13. And I started off as a telephone book salesman with my dad.
That's incredible. Yeah. Were you door to door?
Door to door.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had to carry them around with you?
Yeah. Bags of telephone books, white pages, yellow pages in a bag.
Wow. You think that hasn't existed since like the 50s.
I know.
It's like Willy Loman style.
It's insane. Yeah. And they don't exist anymore. Right. Now people are like, what the hell's a telephone book?
People sold telephone books?
Sold them?
What do you mean?
No,
like,
we delivered them. It was like newspaper delivery, but it was the telephone book.
Oh, okay. So you were the person dropping them off at people's doorsteps.
I was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Me and my father. So I was buying too many comic books. And he said, Dave, I think you have to start earning your own money. And he was in the school system. He was a social worker in the school system. So he had his summers off. So he was brilliant. He was like, what can I do with this kid to earn money? And he did that. So he drove around. We were in our station wagon. We'd have to go over the Q Bridge to some shady little warehouse, fill the station wagon with the phone books. Then we had a route.
Wow.
Yeah,
time to earn a living. Okay. Get on your route, your phone book route.
I haven't stopped working since.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our favorite part of the week. It's time to listen to Sounds of Health, where we share the stories, people, and resources that help others to improve their physical, emotional, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Dave MacNiven, and I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Lyssa Mandel. I'm going to take a deep breath for this introduction because there's a lot to go through, but Lyssa is a somatic therapist. She's a tarot card reader. She is also a actor, writer, storyteller, comedian, podcaster, empathy champion, I absolutely love that, and neurotic hippie. So Lyssa creates safe spaces for people to acknowledge, explore, and express their feelings and authentic selves. Lyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. You did a beautiful job with that.
Thank you. Jason threw this at me where I have to control the board for the introduction, so it probably wasn't as smooth as it could be.
It's going to be until we redesign the entire studio.
Okay, great. So I had a little more to do today. And as you could tell before we got started, we had some technical challenges as well, but we roll with things.
Oh, I think your composure is amazing.
Thank you.
You
I
seem
appreciate
very
it.
grounded.
Inside, I'm a mess, but outside, I'm okay. So on the show, we kind of go through a little bit about your background and what led you to where you are today. We'll talk about the things that you have to offer, the things that you're doing that kind of lead to people living healthier lives, and then maybe some of the practices that you incorporate into your own life as well. But what I like to do to get started is a little bit of an icebreaker, and that is a question of what makes you happiest these days?
I like to incorporate a pause. Just to
the dramatic pause is really good.
What makes me happiest is road trips, and specifically long distance road trips, and specifically to places I've never been before.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Have you just done one, or you have one planned soon?
I mean, I kind of always am. Like last weekend, I was reading tarot for my friend's wedding in Woodstock, New York, and I've been to Woodstock before, but I'm always choosing new routes to go that I haven't taken before. And then from there, I went to a different wedding in New Jersey, and I had never been on that route before. So, like, tri-state area aside, the most recent epic road trip that I took was last month. I was in California, where I lived for a time, but I went to Wrightwood, which is this beautiful town up in the mountains in the Angeles National Forest for a writer's retreat.
Oh, wow.
And the drive from LA to Wrightwood was just insanely beautiful. And then from Wrightwood, I went through the forest the other way to Joshua Tree. And it's just my spiritual happiest place.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really great. I've always dreamt of doing a writer's retreat, and I've never actually had that opportunity or taken that opportunity for myself.
Would you want to, you mean go like yourself and retreat by yourself, or be a part of
Be a part of one.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, noted.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I definitely want to do more of those.
Great,
So
yeah.
I'll ask you next time.
Yeah, I would love to consider it at least. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And I told Jason the other day, I just came across a lot of my old writing. And so it's kind of sparked a little bit of that interest in me again.
When you say old writing, how old are we talking?
Well, going back probably decades.
And were you into fiction? Was it more memoir style?
It was a mix of everything. I used to journal regularly, so I have a lot of that content. And then I did a lot of playwriting and movie scripts that I never finished. It'd be pieces of things.
I'm really glad that you saved everything.
Yeah.
Because for me, that has been the most surprising, inspiring thing is like my former self and her voice and her desires. So you never know when you can retool that and use it for another thing.
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
future.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason was actually, the way we met is I cast him in a play, a one-act play that I wrote, and he was in that play, and we actually did it, like 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
And it had some success.
Yeah, we took it to a festival. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. And then I know when I moved to New York, I lived in New York for about 5 or 6 years. I had kind of repurposed things. I'd written a comic book that was in an anthology series. I turned that into a short film. So it's like, yeah, all of that stuff, it's great to have it and kind of revisit it when you need a little spark or you want to work on something.
Yeah. It's always surprising. So right now I'm in the process of writing a book, and so much of this book is made up of notes that I kept like 5, 6, 7 years ago in little notebooks. And now it's going back and rediscovering like, oh, this is relevant. This is relevant. Like, thank you, past self, for leaving these breadcrumbs.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have a dream too of doing more with the podcast and maybe doing interviews with family members and trying to record some of that, because it's just I wish my grandparents were still around, because all of those stories, it would be nice to capture that as well.
Totally. I mean, now that you have a podcast, you have a platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, use it to talk to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been the best part about it, is it's just been so much fun learning people's stories and their histories and talking about what they're doing in their lives.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the segue. How did you get to where you are today? What's your background? How did you go on that path?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to be succinct if possible, but
That's okay.
it's hard.
We're long form sometimes.
The longer I live, the more windy my life gets. So it's been 4 decades now on this planet.
Right.
I mean, I always was a really deep feeler, and I journaled since like the time I was 7, and like kept all of those, and always felt like I was sort of feeling more deeply than anybody else around me, which you come to find out later, like most children feel like that, you know?
Yeah.
But it probably was my loneliness that propelled me into what I did, which was like constantly seeking deep connection in community. I did always want to be an actor or a performer. Came to find out, like after doing that for a long time, that it was really like my inner child just needing to be seen and understood.
Yeah.
So, acting led to improv, led to stand-up comedy, I was always trying to get to this like juicy center point of like, how do I connect with people on this deep level and also have an audience? And so, can I curse on this show?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so
I think, right? Are we okay with
No, we
that?
haven't
Well-
yet. This would be the first
Oh,
time.
really?
Well,
This would be the first
Are there
word.
Facebook things that?
No, there
No,
isn't.
okay.
No.
All right.
well, it's just the title of my show. I did this live talk show that became a podcast called The Bitch Seat. That was an interview show. You can beep it out if you want, but I like to reclaim that word because it's about like the middle seat in the back of the car, which I always had to sit in when I went like carpool to dance classes because I was the littlest one. So I always had to sit on the hump or ride bitch as it were.
Right.
And I started the show so that I could read some of my old journals on stage. because they were just the most maudlin purple prose, Jane Austen style, whatever, like when I was 11, 12, 13. So I would begin each show by reading from my journals, and then I would invite on several guests to share something they wrote or made when they were kids.
Oh, wow.
And with my partner, Phil, was on stage with me. And so the guest would be in the middle, and it was like a late night style talk show. We would have a musical guest.
Yeah.
And it was the most amazing thing because, we did it as a comedy show, but it ended up being so much deeper and richer than that, because as soon as people would get on stage, and these are like comedians, actors, people who have confidence, who aren't scared to be on stage. And as soon as they were about to share this thing that they made when they were little, they were, oh my gosh, I'm getting so nervous. And I'm like, yes, this is the sweet spot. Like because it was this beautiful time travel thing where people's inner children were getting to be seen in this way that they never got to be before. And it was so healing, and also, like, there was one point I got some press and somebody compared me to Oprah or whatever. Like, there was a therapy quality to it as it was. Yeah. And so I did that for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
On both coasts, had like a weekly podcast in addition to the monthly show. And then COVID happened, and I had this sort of intense fire under my butt grow up moment, where obviously nobody was out on stage. And it was like, well, I don't think that I want to be a server for the rest of my life. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Actually, my favorite job has been serving tables.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. In this place in LA that I miss. But I was looking into therapy programs. And the reason why I knew about somatic therapy is because of the acting conservatory that I was in the city. I went to Maggie Flanagan. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a Meisner program, 2-year intensive Meisner program.
That's great.
And there's movement classes that are part of the program that you have to take. Mm-hmm. And so I did that when I was like 27, 28, and remembered in this moment of like, what am I doing with my life? These movement classes were, they're designed to get the body open and available so that emotions can flow through, right? As an actor. But for me, it was like almost a spiritual experience, like a magical experience, because it was the first time in my life that I actually felt my body, I grew up such an overachiever, straight A student, super driven, because that was what was valued, in my household and just in society. So I was living from the neck up, and being in that class, and I would see like the teachers would like put a hand on the back of somebody's, back, or like, extend their cervical vertebrae, and all of a sudden tears would be flowing. Right. And I was like, what is this witchery? And it just felt, it just felt right. It was like a step in the direction of feeling more holistic, of feeling like a whole self, not just like my brain is the only thing that's valuable about me. And so I started looking up somatic therapy programs specifically, because I've been in regular talk therapy my whole life, like since I was 4, on and off since I was 4. Yeah. And didn't feel like it really helped any of the neurotic bits. I understood more cognitively, but I didn't understand. I didn't feel healed ever. Yeah, right. I felt more healed by what I did in that show, by embodying my inner child, than I ever did by being in talk therapy. So I knew it was going to be kind of an alternative route. Yeah. I decided I didn't want to get an official master's. I didn't want to go back into academia, because I didn't think that was about the core of the thing. It's not about writing papers. It's about being, in the moment. So I found this program. Is this too long of a story?
No, it's not. The problem with the story is I have so many things I want to ask you about.
You can pause me at any time.
But I mean, I don't even know which direction to go in. So you continue for now. I'm making notes.
Okay.
Hey, Dave, you've done movement exercises with your theater training. I was there. Yes. We did that Circle in the Square together.
Circle in the Square, yeah.
Circle in the Square.
Yeah. I had a professor there who changed my life when it was the same type of thing. Yeah. Like I was always a very heady kid. Mm-hmm. I was always in my head. Mm-hmm. And when I started to go through that training, it opened up a whole new world to me. And it changed my voice. It changed everything about me. And it was an incredible experience. He actually, he gave me a nickname. You know how you get those review sheets at the end? So he said, new nickname for the artist, Dave, permission given, MacNiven.
Dave, do you know I have a tattoo? The first tattoo I ever got on the inside of my left biceps that says permission.
Get out of here.
Because
No
of that
way.
work. Because of that class.
No way.
I swear to you.
That's unbelievable.
So my question is, was Lloyd Williamson the mentor of your Circle in the Square teacher?
Williamson, maybe. It was Ken Schatz, right? Was his name?
I think Ken might have studied with Lloyd.
think he
and Lloyd
might
was
have.
my mentor. And it was always like every class began with 10 minutes in which to do nothing, where you're lying on your back on
Right,
the floor.
yeah.
And you're not responsible for anything at all except awareness of what's going on and permission to
Yeah.
let it be there. And that was... Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I was just always in my head, and I
Yep.
I didn't give myself permission to do things, and I didn't, so that was life changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And life changing in a way, not just for being on stage.
No, not at all. I took that and everything else that I did. I wish that I had continued that practice. I didn't continue that practice, or any sort of meditation or anything. I've dabbled in things here and there,
Yeah.
but I still haven't quite found my way back to doing more of that.
Well, it turns out, when I was doing that work, they would always say like, this isn't meditation, this isn't whatever. And I'm like,
Right.
you're full of crap. This is absolutely,
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
And I used to think that I actually needed permission from teachers or whatnot to like have those experiences.
Right.
But you don't.
No.
And this is what I've learned in somatic therapy training, all of these ways in which we can be with ourselves and our own experience. I mean, it's always better to have a witness,
Yeah.
Any wounds that were created in relationship need to be healed in relationship, but that doesn't mean that you don't have relationships with your own parts. And there are practices you can do to be with them.
Interesting. So a wound that was created through a relationship you had with someone, is that what you're saying? Needs to be...
I'm sorry, I'm skipping a bunch of steps.
Yeah.
We all have trauma.
Yes.
We all do. And people, I feel like it's a word that's becoming like a buzzword. But trauma doesn't need to be like one horrible, terrible thing that happened to you when you're 6. It might have been a bunch of tiny little paper cuts of small moments when you had a feeling, like a big feeling, whether it was like anger or sadness, and express that feeling. And rather than being met with, whoever your original caregivers were, being met with acceptance, you were met with neglect. They turned away. You were punished. And I want to be
Right.
really, really clear. Parenting is the hardest job on earth.
Absolutely.
And parents are human beings doing the best they can with the resources they have. And my somatic therapy mentor says, if you are parenting well 30% of the time, that's good parenting. So like there's no perfect here.
Nice.
And we can have compassion for our parents and everything they did. And also we get to have our anger for ways in which they couldn't support us, and our grief for ways in which they couldn't support us. And so it's important that that's a way that we reclaim ourselves rather than abandoning ourselves. So
Gotcha.
when I say wounds that were created in a relationship, I mean our original bonding.
Okay.
Whoever our original caregivers were between the ages of like 0 and 5, 0 and 7, we all carry wounds of not being understood in certain moments. And those become the hardware that lead us to all of our adult behaviors.
Right.
I'm going to pause.
Why is that? You looked at Jason like he wasn't understanding. Or something.
No. I'm just realizing that like I if I don't pause, I'm going to keep talking.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So let's rein it a little bit back in. So going from, so you had mentioned that you got into acting.
Yeah.
Right. So you had a different path though. So what happened there? How did that transition happen for you?
I mean, I still love it. And I
Yeah.
still have a manager, actually. I live in New York and I still have, TV auditions from time to time.
Yeah.
But I felt myself shift from like acting being like the entree and, spiritual seeking being sort of the side dishes. I felt that shift naturally happen where the seeking part became more of the entree. And I think it would have happened regardless of COVID.
Yeah.
Like I think we all went through major shifts that we were going to go through anyway.
Yeah.
COVID just sped it up. But to me, like the acting thing and the therapy thing are connected in the part of like having real live connections with people and feelings and like people expressing their feelings authentically.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just that with acting, you have this container of there's a script around it, there's a character around it. So it's not really real.
Right.
But as we know, like the nervous system doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
very
when
true.
people are having feelings on stage, they're really having those feelings. And I was just like more interested in like what was really underneath.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. It sounds too like the podcast kind of transitioned you from
Totally
that
did.
to this,
It
right?
totally did.
It almost
because-
combined the two, and then you came out the other side with it flipped.
Totally.
Yeah.
I see that visual too. And I don't want to be done with the podcast. Like I say that I don't want to be, but like
Yeah.
I felt this drive to do it. Like it was almost like, and I don't want to get too woo-woo here, but like I did feel like it was some other energy that was like, and now you're doing this, and now you're doing this. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to ride this wave. And it felt like I was reaching for a need when I was doing that podcast. And I remember being on stage at this theater in LA doing this show, and I had been doing it for years, and like I was getting the laughs, like I knew exactly what I was doing. And I had the tiny little inkling of like, I think that like I'm winding down. I think that the thing that I needed from this I got.
Yeah.
I think the itch was scratched. And the itch was for my inner kid to get the accolades that she so desperately needed.
Right.
And I gave them to her. And it was like, that was how I knew that actual healing is possible. Because so much of somatic therapy is inner child work, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And because our inner child lives in us in our nervous system states. And so once I felt like I had scratched that itch, I was panicking for a while where I was like, where's my ambition? Like I had this ambition to like be big, to be famous, to be seen on stage, to like climb. And I didn't have that fire anymore. So it felt, and there was something almost like my ego didn't need that in the way that it used to. And so it was trust me, it was like a devastating experience. Like 2020, 2021, definitely my darkest time of my life.
Yeah.
Because I felt kind of directionless. And I was like, what if I already achieved everything I'm supposed to achieve in this lifetime? And, get really existential. about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, there is this deeper thing. There is this deeper way of seeking. It's not going to be scratching your ego very much. It's not going to be on a stage, but it is a way of bringing everything that I have learned, like my lived experience so far, and helping other people connect to their deepest selves.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah. So that brings you to where you are now.
Yeah.
And so what is the work that you're doing, the somatic therapy and the tarot card reading? How are you doing that as?
Well, the tarot was a tool that I was using in those years when I was swimming around and like, I don't know what I'm doing next. Like I was just pulling cards for myself, and really like people hear tarot cards and it like triggers all kinds of things that may or may not be accurate, like occult stuff.
Right.
I see the tarot as a language of archetypes and symbols that we can use reflectively to help give us more clarity on what is going on with our lives, like where we fall in our lives, what are some actionable tools we can use to help ease our experiences. And so I was just like, I'm self-taught, and I was just learning that like leading up to the pandemic and during the pandemic. I hope someday that my somatic therapy practice will include more pulling cards. I've tried it a little bit to blend them.
Yeah.
But either way, they're both, whether it's tarot or somatic therapy or astrology or the Enneagram or human design or any of these things,
Right.
they're all languages that we can use to better understand the ineffable essence of ourselves.
That makes sense to me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really just kind of gives a framework for communication.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my practice now, and I just started pretty recently. I have some clients, but I finished this 2-year program through the Levin Institute. I'm an RSMT, Registered Somatic Movement Therapist, which is recognized by this international group, is META. And the therapy I do is one-on-one. I do it over Zoom, which is how my whole school was over Zoom, which is cool. So I can work with people everywhere. And it always, like, there's some talking, but there's like way less talking. So somatic therapy, I think, is a way of, it's couples therapy, but the couple is your mind and your body, and they're learning to talk to each other.
Okay.
So, you can come in and say, like, this is what I want to work on. And like, I'll get a little bit of the context, but then it's like, okay, that thing that you just mentioned, what are the feelings that are there when you talk about it? So it's really, you can talk about context all day long, but it's really way fewer words and more about some feelings or needs that are alive inside of your body, that are needs that were never met. And so we try to meet them in real time, because like we talk about like the physical body, but there's also the emotional body, the emotions that literally live in the tissues of our viscera, of our organs. And we already have language for this, like heartbreak or gut punch or like butterflies in your stomach, all these things that are physical sensations that are pointing to emotional experiences that were never processed.
I like one of my favorite ones is the references in Shakespeare and stuff that they would have. Also, there's all this fascination with bile for some reason.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. Well, like anger, right?
Right.
That's all anger.
Yeah.
And traditional Chinese medicine will say the same thing, So all of these systems are kind of coming together. So like, I do feel like somatic therapy brings like Eastern and Western together in a way.
I like the expressions too. It's like you're being filled up with piss and vinegar.
But you know what that feels like.
Exactly what it is.
You know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perfect description of something that you couldn't put words to.
Right. When your heart's in knots, or something like that.
Exactly.
It's like, you know exactly what that feeling is, emotionally and physically.
Right.
Exactly.
So with that therapy, are you able to incorporate movement even though you're over Zoom?
Yeah, but it's not, somatic therapy isn't necessarily about physical movement.
Okay.
It's about, like, the soma is the body, but we're talking about the innards of the body.
Okay.
So sometimes, like, I do some expressive arts therapy too, which will involve having people make like a really basic drawing of what's going on inside of their body, or like drawing some life issue that they can't get their mind around. Because that is connecting your right brain, so that, our left brain is like the heady thing that's talking too much.
Right.
And so sometimes we'll have people draw something and then say like, okay, now become one of the elements of that drawing. Choose one of the elements. If that element were a gesture, what would it be? And then doing that, which sounds very weird, but like then amazing things start to open up because you're letting your body speak in its own language, as opposed to your mind trying to like force labels onto things.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the movement is the really subtle movement that happens inside of us as we bring awareness to certain sensations in the body. And if we bring a non-judgmental, curious, compassionate awareness to the sensations in real time, they start to shift. So like somebody could come in and say like, it feels like I have this rock in my chest, or they don't even know that. People will come in and be like, I don't feel anything in my body. And then it's like, okay, well then that's where we start. Then there's a good reason why your body has learned to silence itself, because it was protection that you learned a long time ago. So we're really just learning how your particular body processes feelings or holds against feelings. And in the learning about it, like learning in a visceral way and slowing our minds down to the speed of our bodies, healing naturally happens, because the body is like, finally, you're listening to me.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's amazing.
I think it's magical.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it can be life-changing, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just thinking back into my own life and like where we keep stress
Yeah.
in our bodies, for
Yeah.
example. You know, some people keep it in their shoulders. I keep it in my knees, I think. You know, because when I work too hard or I'm stressed out, you know, I usually feel it. And then, I mean, it's just you can just go through your entire body from head to toe and see, okay, the not the pressure points, but the stressor points.
Absolutely. And so I would say like that's where we begin, right? And I would say, Jason, what if you just closed your eyes and let your awareness drift down to your knees?
Do this right now.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, just, you know, we don't have
I can turn the camera around.
We don't have to do that. But like, then we'd get curious. We would bring the awareness down to the knees, like imagining like little awareness molecules floating down to your knees. And we'd say, can we just be with the knees while they experience right now? Like, we're not trying to make them do anything.
All right, I'm going to do this right now then. Let's do this. Okay. I can turn the camera around, actually. Hold on a second.
You're getting free therapy here, Jay.
Free therapy.
I don't know.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. So, letting your awareness drop down to your knees and just noticing what's here right now. Any sensations. And we're trying to feel the knees with a primacy of awareness. So, as if experiencing the knees for the first time or any sensations therein for the first time. And what are you noticing?
They feel kind of like empty right now, like because I don't know. I don't feel that I'm using them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I will.
Like I usually do. Like right now, I'm pretty relaxed and pretty happy. But they kind of feel like they're not doing their job they're supposed to be doing.
Oh, so that voice that came in that said they're not doing their job. That sounds like a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
We would, in my therapy, we would call that a victimizer voice, which is just an energy that says something about you is bad or wrong, and that is something that might have come at you a really long time ago. This is what happens. This energy comes at us a really long time ago, and then we end up doing it to ourselves and to others sometimes. So I would say to that voice, thanks, you can go over and sit in the corner. We're just hanging out with the knees.
All right, voice, you can leave my knees, go hang out in the corner. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, it's hard. First of all, I will say, normally I wouldn't go with the knees because we're looking for something inside the organs, like in the torso.
In the organs, okay.
However, I have worked with people on their shoulders and things. This is a whole long process, as you can see. But like we could look into, empty, interesting. So like, what does empty feel like? Does empty feel like a relief? Does it feel like does it feel like a failure? Does it feel like good or whatever? So we just get really, really granular on the cellular level, and it takes a lot of time, right? Because normally we're like, come on, what's next? What? And that's the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Always pushing us.
Yeah.
Yep. That's great. So how are you incorporating all of the things you're doing into what your life is now?
Well, listen, let me just say, for people who care about astrology, I'm like 1,000,000% Sagittarius, which means I need novelty all the time. So every day is different.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm laughing because I'm a Sagittarius as well.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. When is your birthday?
December 11th.
December 11th. I'm November 22nd. So there are some days when I have therapy clients. There are some days when I have tarot clients. I work part-time for a little comedy theater in Astoria, New York, where I live, doing PR and marketing. I also edit articles for some random e-commerce site and edit whatever else comes up. I lead spontaneous writing workshops on Zoom. I'm piecemealing it.
Yeah.
And I think I always had the idea that like when I got to be a quote unquote grown up, I would find one thing. I'm never going to just find one thing.
Definitely not.
That's not for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that same experience. I mean, I have never found that one thing.
Really?
I've always done multiple things all my life.
Yeah, and that way of living has sort of been maligned by like the structures that have been in place, that have been running things for a while, where it's like you find the one thing and you climb the ladder and you get really good at it, and that's the only acceptable way to be. But I think if you check out like what's going on like with the younger generations, there is a much more of an acceptance for following all of your fancies.
Yeah, for sure. I can remember my dad saying something. This is one of these things, right, that sticks in your brain. And I don't know why it stuck in my brain, but there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken commercial where the guy, Colonel Sanders or whoever, no, maybe it wasn't Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was something. It was Purdue, maybe, one of those things. The guy said, do one thing and do it better than anyone. And my dad would always react to that like, no, that's not the way to live your life.
Oh, bless your dad.
Yeah.
That's Purdue chicken, I think.
It was Purdue. Okay, yeah, not Kentucky Fried.
Don't come for us, Purdue.
But that's something that I always carried with me too. Yeah, please. And it's like, that's the way that I live my life too. Now, when I got into the financial services with Medicare and things, that was an area that you're dealing with helping people with very important things in their lives.
Right.
So I have to focus and I have to be an expert in those things.
Right.
And I found it myself really enjoying that. And it really filled me up in a way that nothing else had. So, but that doesn't mean that that's all I do. I have other things I do, like this podcast.
Right.
Or writing and things like that.
Right. Right. I mean, there can always be like a main, a main source of whatever it is, fulfillment, income. But I think we do ourselves a disservice if we limit ourselves to just one thing. Also, like when we were in school growing up, or even in college, like we were never just doing one thing.
Right, exactly.
We were in many classes at once. And so I always thought it was such a scam that I was like, wait, when I finish college, I have to just go to one job every day?
You're going to specialize now?
What the heck?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's great. So, okay, so you're doing a lot of things. Now, we had talked, I think before we got on officially, about your website and what it portrays now. It's not quite updated, but I have to tell you, so I was on there this morning and reading and looking at some of the content that's on there. And it is a website that does convey energy and personality.
Oh, thank you.
And not all of them do. So I was really impressed by that. And when you told me that it's not updated to what you're currently really focusing on, I found that interesting. But is that a part, is that a part of what you're looking to do, is kind of promote these other sides of you now a little bit more? Or?
Yes. So the website, was created when I was like going on all cylinders for acting and comedy.
Right.
And so it's got my reel and my headshots, and there's a whole page about the bitch seat, which I still, believe in.
Yeah.
But there, now there's a tarot page, but there isn't like a somatic therapy section. And I have to tell you that like admin, not my strong suit.
Yeah.
It freaks me out to have to make choices that are like, and this is going to express exactly who you are and what you do in the form of this website. And I'm like, oh no.
Right.
So it doesn't reflect the somatic therapy bit yet, because perfection is the enemy of good for me. I have to be honest with you, Dave. There are so many ways to describe what somatic therapy is, what it has meant for me, and I'm still kind of piecing together what I want to express. And this positive reflection for me was actually really helpful for me, because I sort of fear that potential clients will come to my website and see all these things and be like, oh, she's like a diner menu, so like she does a lot of things not very well. And I had a branding coach who was like, I just don't think that's the case. Like, I do think all these things are connected. So, it's myself that needs convincing.
Yeah, sure. I think it's unique of what I saw on your website. I think it's a very unique thing that it does make sense. I can understand wanting to maybe separate this business out from that business so that you can maybe market it more effectively, or you want to be taken seriously with the therapy. But everybody does that, right? Yeah. You're doing something different. So it don't lose what makes you unique as you're trying to pursue something new.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was impressed by it. And it sounds amazing. I mean, so if you had to say, like, who are you looking for? Who should contact you? What, anything like that we can send people?
Sure. People who are, I am a skeptic turned believer in terms of like, it used to be like, if I can't see it and touch it, it's not real. Like I was basically an atheist growing up. So I like to work with people who maybe were skeptics, but find themselves opening to these other ideas now and don't know what to do with it. I also definitely like to work with people who feel like they're really heady and they intellectualize everything, and they want to be more in contact with their bodies. People who are in a process of quote unquote awakening or whatever you want to call it. It's like, I feel like I can be a doula for that. Or like you have always had lots of feelings and you don't know how to express them. Anxiety, depression.
Yeah, right. You're dealing with something you need assistance with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how would they reach out to you? What's the service look like?
Well, there is a form on my website that you can contact me through. I also am fully on Instagram all the time at A Flock of Sandwiches, and I do respond to all of my DMs, regardless of whether or not you think it's professional. It's the future. I don't care. And normally we will set up a time, like if you're interested in somatic therapy or learning about it, we'll set up like a 20-minute call, free, where I'll ask about like what you're looking for and tell you what I offer, kind of describe what somatic therapy is, maybe do a little sample of it. Mm-hmm. And then I see people either weekly or every other week. And I use a sliding scale because I don't want it to be prohibitive for anybody. As an RSMT, I'm not licensed, even though I'm registered, so I can't take health insurance.
Right.
So that's why I want to keep it sliding scale so that people can afford to pay out of pocket.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, you had kind of, through your story that we went into, I think a lot of what you were describing is the fact that you have an empathic nature.
Yes.
And you use that empathy champion in a description of yourself.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that means for you.
It's funny because I forgot that was in there.
Yeah.
My last real job was for a startup called Zany. That was a tool for Slack designed to help people build trust through remote working, which this company arrived on the scene before COVID. And then, of course, that whole thing exploded.
Yeah, sure.
But that was where Empathy Champion came from, because what we were trying to do was help bridge gaps, regardless of where in the world people were, what culture they were coming from, that there were these universal truths about us that were human first and everything else after. And I feel like, again, this all goes back to, I'm imagining being in the auditorium in high school and feeling such big feelings, such big desire to connect. And that is at the root of everything. Like, if you strip everything else away, I think the deepest thing is like our human hearts, and that we want to connect, and that is biologically wired into us.
Yeah.
And everything that I've done since then, up to and including therapy school, has been, I have compassion for everybody, regardless of what they've done in their lives, because there was a reason why, like there is a deeper, older reason why they did that. Even I was watching Succession.
Great show.
Great show. People would not consider those people to be quote unquote good people.
Of course, yeah.
But I felt so much heart for them, especially, and like spoilers here, there's a scene at the end of season 1 where Kendall, the eldest son, is offered a hug from his father. Clearly a thing that has like not happened ever.
Yeah.
And he just collapses in tears because he needed it so much. And like, I'm like choking up thinking about it now. I feel that I see everybody's inner child, and everybody just wanting to be held and valued and understood and connected with. And so that's what I think I mean by empathy champion, like peeling away all the layers to just get to the heart of the heart.
Yeah. I love that. It's something I use in my core values. I call active empathy. And it's the idea in my mind, what it means is that, I've been somebody that's always been empathic, and it's been a plus and minus in my life because you have to protect yourself too. Like
Absolutely.
when energy affects you, when negativity affects you, you have to find a way to protect yourself from
Absolutely.
that, but not lose the fact that you're a giver. You're willing to connect and do all of those things. You don't want to lose that part of you. So I think about it as you have to actively develop that.
Yes. And what you're saying is perfect. And that is part of what we do in somatic therapy as well, is like we're calling in supports, and we're calling in, energies of like good mothering or good fathering, good parenting energy.
Yeah.
But we're also sometimes calling in protection and like, what does that look like for you? And I mean, like in the imaginal realm, and landing in different protection is going to feel right in different moments. So what I would say to, like, for me, whenever I leave my apartment in the morning, there's a little piece of paper on my door that says ring of protection, and there's this like gold circle, and I just like pause for a beat and imagine this like gold kind of force field like coming up around me, and then I go out into the world. So like your protection can be porous enough, that empathy can get through without just like shutting you down, but that is a tool.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
super important, especially if you have a really soft and vulnerable heart.
Yeah. Yeah. That visualization is
Yes.
and it's something that people don't do naturally a lot of times.
Right.
They don't even know that it seems hokey to them.
I'm saying that's what I came from.
Right.
Was a past of like, this is so corny.
Right.
But as I will return to, the nervous system doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So you can call it corny, but it actually does work. You can feel the physical shift inside you.
Yeah, it's similar to what people talk about when they say you need to manifest what you want, write it down, create those vision boards.
Yep.
All of those things, they do help. Like those things, if you focus your energy on something and you visualize it, it does help you. I see it with kids too. I coached baseball, my kids through Little League, and you want them to go up at bat when they're nervous and stuff, thinking about, I'm going to hit this ball.
Yes.
I'm going to hit it hard.
Yeah.
It's that visualization does help. It calms the body.
Yeah.
And it lets them be stronger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like the concept of active empathy, as we're discussing, is often a learned behavior. It's something that some people don't have naturally, but they do inherit a lot of it from their parents, from their society, from their groups that they're part of. But one thing I think that a lot of people have is just holding space for other people. That's more familiar, with therapy, for example. Just being present with someone doesn't have to respond back with a full active empathy moment, but just holding that space for them, just being present with them, also can speak volumes, because we know what physically, what that means.
Yeah.
Being safe, belonging, being together, holding that space also is kind of in that. Wired into our being as people.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk about the concept of being with, right? Like that is, or to meet what's here and to be with. It doesn't have to be verbal at all. It could just be like you show up with an energy, with an openness, and people feel that.
Yeah.
And I think that as we evolve as a species, our bodies are coming online in this way where it's like we begin to detect when people are not with us. Even if their body is physically here and they happen to be looking at us, we can feel, oh, there's like a wall here, like this is closed off.
Sure, yeah.
Or people will say things and we'll be like, they said that, but that's not what I feel, know? And previous versions of humanity would call that being psychic, but I think it's just this innate ability that we all have to be intuitive. And you're right. I think the best way to show active empathy sometimes is just to be without like, stop crying, like, or like, have a tissue, like your tears are making me uncomfortable. Like not that, like, whatever you're here with, even if you feel like a mess, like I value you just as much. And that can be here too.
Yeah,
I think it's phenomenal that each thing that you do, that's part of what you're bringing to the table and holding space, whether it's the bitch seat, whether it's the therapy, somatic therapy, even in performance and acting, you're holding that space with someone, acknowledging them and being present. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. This has been such an awesome conversation. What are some of the things that you do in your own practice in life to make sure that you're staying healthy?
So even though I've technically finished school, I maintain community connections with the people that I've met in school, with my teachers. Being in community is everything for me. And not just any community. Like, I really recommend finding, even if you can't find one or two people, finding belonging somehow, even if it's with your pet, even if it's with the trees, you know, even if it's with like who you think are your angels or your guides or your well ancestors, like tapping into that kind of source to help you know you're not alone. Because I'm very emotional. Like, my emotions change every day.
Yeah.
And now I know, like, when this thing comes up, like, I don't have to be alone in it. I can reach out. Like, reaching out is the most important tool. I use it every day. I'm talking to with friends and colleagues every day. And I go for a lot of walks.
Yeah.
Walks are super important to me. I dance a lot alone in my house. That's my favorite way to exercise. I went climbing for the first time last week, like on a climbing wall. Yeah.
That's fun. That's a lot of fun.
It was great. So finding a way to be in connection, I think, is the most important thing. Also, art making doesn't have to look great. Just like trying to tap into that little kid self who made art for its own sake and not because they were trying to get good grades or trying to make money or anything.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah. Colored pencils, like crayons, watercolors, whatever, whatever feels fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to get my kids doing more of that because that's not something that they've really gotten into. A little bit in school here and there, but that's all I did as a kid. I drew and I created and I wrote, and that's what I did. That's what I was good at, and that's what I enjoyed, and that's kind of what got me through a lot of things too.
Absolutely. I mean, don't underestimate the power of journaling.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Or anything that gets you in your right brain, I think, is the most healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed one of the things you do, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but you jump on Instagram and you pull a card.
Yes.
And I want to say that I look forward to when you just jump in your car and pull a card and do a reading.
Oh.
Because you kind of do your self-analysis of the day and what's happening, and you let the cards, come out and it kind of helps guide you.
Totally.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I read cards for myself every day.
Yeah.
I aspire to do it more on Instagram, but I'll jump on and do a live and pull a card in real time. I do this 2-card spread, the mirror and the medicine. So I'll shuffle and pull out 2 cards.
Do you want to pull 2 cards for me right now?
Well,
he's really
looking for this free therapy.
I know.
Jeez, Jay.
For you or for the collective of listeners, Jason?
I think we should do the collective.
Yeah, I think so too.
We've had about 15. We've had 17 listeners so far. So
cool. So this deck that I'm shuffling is the Dawn Aquarius Tarot, and it's like these beautiful psychedelic colors. So
what is the difference between decks?
They're different art, and you choose decks based on what speaks to you. Like,
okay.
I was actually following this artist on Instagram, and then she put out a deck of her art, and I was like, oh yes, that's definitely for me. There is a superstition that you're supposed to only be gifted decks and not buy them for yourself, but I say screw that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Well.
Oh, we lost a couple to the floor. I guess those are the ones you're choosing?
Yep.
All right.
That's what happens. Okay. So we have... which camera should I show these to?
this is the live one.
The 2 of Wands in the mirror position, and the Knight of Pentacles in the medicine position, and then a super secret third one, which is the Two of Swords. Okay, so we have 2 twos. So so Wands is the suit of your inner spark, your inner fire, your passion, creativity. And the 2 is at the very beginning of the journey, right? Because the numerical cards go up to 10, and in general, they follow like a narrative arc of a journey with whatever the suit is. And Wands is the suit of fire. And the 2, as a reflection of you, is a reminder that you have all of the tools that you need in order to embark on this next creative journey, whatever it is, whether it is a project of some kind, even whether it's just like the shape of your day, like your day as a creative palette, which I think it is. We are all artists creating our lives. And the 2 says, okay, you have all of the raw materials available to you to begin this journey of art making. Now it is for you to pick one up, to choose one and pick one up and begin. So, to allow like that choice of which one of those tools you want to pick up to come from not a logical place, but to come from like your sacral chakra. We're not talking chakras in this podcast, but it's like the seat of your creativity, right? Like in the bowl of your pelvis, like that is where your life fire comes from. To feel into what would feel like the most fun tool for me to pick up right now. Not the most logical, not the most pragmatic, but like, and as we were just talking about, like art making, like a metaphor is like you're sitting down to make art and you have like all these different colors in front of you and like which one like speaks to you, Mm-hmm. So that is a 2 of Wands in the mirror position. In the medicine position, and by mirror, I mean a reflection of what is like what you have right now. And the medicine position is like, here's a gentle suggestion or invitation of what energies or behaviors you could incorporate in order to enhance your life. Like, what is your medicine today? And we have the Knight of Pentacles, and all of the knights, they're like the teenagers of the tarot. So they have a lot of raw energy. They're not in mastery yet, but they have done a lot of learning. They have some tools. They have they have an ambition and a motivation, and they ride forth toward whatever their passion is, sometimes a little recklessly. But again, if it comes up as the medicine, that's what you're called to do. Like, we're not being super, super careful. And Pentacles is the suit of earth, is the suit of material resources. But it can also have to do with our connection to the physical earth, to the physical nature. Like the Knight of Pentacles feels at home with uncertainty, with being ungrounded. He finds home wherever he goes. So rather than being a creature of habit, he tries on, how does it feel when I stand in this place versus this place? And he does it with courage and bravery. And Jason, what are you doing over there?
Laptop. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So I would say, to summarize, like, you have all the raw materials to create something with your day today. So choose how you want to start, and then follow your feet and trust that you might travel to like unfamiliar corners of your mind, unfamiliar corners of your house, of your town, whatever, to give yourself a change of venue, maybe, even if that just means walking around the block in a different direction, in order to stoke the creativity. So, and then the other one that came up is the Two of Swords, which, like, I don't know, I'm a little bit, I feel like it's kind of, I think this card is a bully. It's like, it's a choice card. Like, it's a stalemate card. It's like you are keeping yourself stuck. And so it does feel like a sort of like, this is the reason why we're leaning into these 2 cards here, because otherwise we're just going to be in our minds. We're never going to reach a new decision. It's always going to be between this and this, whatever. And I think that the antidote to that kind of stalemate or stuckness is just like being a creative experimenter. There you go.
Awesome.
So what is the Two of Swords? Is it like the Hamlet card? It's like the indecision is going to be your downfall. Is that what it is?
I mean, the twos are all kind of about a decision. But like the Two of Swords is the suit of, it's the suit of the air element, and it's the suit of the mind. It's the suit of words, ideas, writing, but also conflict and boundaries. So when there are two swords, it's like you are kind of at a stalemate within your own mind. You know, it's between me and me. And in the card, you can see this woman has a blindfold. She's not even taking in the rest of the world. She's just stuck in her own head. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Got it.
Well, that was really cool. That was interesting. And I can see how it is a framework of communication, right? So everybody that just listened to that is now, it's on them how they interpret it. And
Exactly.
if they do anything with it, they might not do anything with it. You might not believe in any of those things. But really, beyond needing to believe in something like tarot, or it really is just a tool.
It's just a tool.
Yeah.
It's like you could shuffle any deck of cards and like whatever comes up comes up. Like you just it's less about believing in something woo and more about trusting that you are receiving the image and the language that you need in the exact right moment.
Yeah.
And either you believe in that or you trust that or you don't.
Right. Yep.
You know?
And that's on each individual to
Totally.
determine.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here with us. This was a really fun episode for me. I feel like you and I have a ton to talk about.
I think so too.
But we can't keep our listeners too much longer. So I do want to thank you for being here. I think we'll probably have you back if you're open to that
Always
too.
open to
at
it.
some point. The last thing I did want to ask you about is you're a comedian, right? So you did stand up? Was that specific to what you were doing with the bitch seat, or was that different? Like, how did...
I mean, I started doing stand-up before I did the
You
bitch
did,
seat,
okay.
and it was really more like it was the next right thing after doing improv, which is like sharing the stage with 7 other people, and then I was like, I have things to say. I don't want to share the stage with anybody.
Right, yeah.
And it was a great way to process some of my own trauma. Like, of course, I talked about my anxiety. I was
Right.
mostly like a self-referential comedian. And then I realized that like a lot of comedians do that and they process only to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you're actually not healing yourself. You're just repeating the same problems over and over again. But that said, I think that stand-ups are like, good stand-ups are like the truth tellers of our society.
I agree. Yeah. And also it's important. Somebody was just asking for advice the other day, and they were just having a really bad time, a lot of challenges on both ends, children, parents, all those things. And, what can they do? And I said, let me give you a couple of comedians. 'Cause
Yeah.
honestly, just sitting there and laughing is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so normalizing and validating. Like when I first discovered Mark Maron,
Yeah.
I was like, this is my people. Oh my gosh. Like it just made me feel less alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's always something that I recommend to people to go out and
Totally.
laugh, just have some
Totally.
fun. Well, thank you, Lyssa, for being here today
thank you
and,
so
and
much.
sharing all of your gifts with our audience. We'll definitely point them in the right direction so that they can get in touch if they need to with you. And good luck with everything that you're doing. I'm really excited to see where you go.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Thanks for the free therapy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone who joined us on Facebook Live. And be sure to download and listen to the podcast. This podcast will be released on Monday. So if you were here for Lyssa, go back and listen to some of our other episodes too. We've had some really amazing guests. And if you know anyone who should be a guest on the show, make sure that you reach out. You can message us in the comments or through our website or email. But thank you for being here and helping us to spread the sounds of health. Sounds of Health is brought to you by Nutmeg Insurance Advisors and recorded at the offices of Nutmeg Advisory Group. The podcast is produced by Jason Carubia and Dave MacNiven with music by Rob Hames. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate it when you like, subscribe, and leave a review. If you know someone who you think should be a guest on the show, please email us at SoundsofHealthPodcast@gmail.com. Each week, we help you move the needle toward better health by spotlighting the stories, people, and resources that inspire and motivate others. And we are just getting started. Help us share these sounds, and don't keep us a secret.
Bye.